You're watching Malc Benjy, you lucky son of a bitch. Subscribe.
Hello, and welcome to Malc Benjy's Vidcast.
I'm Malc.
And I'm Benji. And this is sort of the first proper episode of the Vidcast. We're going to be talking a little bit about recent developments, recent events in sort of movie history, or movie the movie world.
What will be movie history?
Aye.
If you're watching this in 2020,
that'd be amazing.
That's only 6 years away, isn't it?
That's depressing.
If you're watching this in 2050,
the future from the moon.
Yeah.
So we're going to be talking a little bit about current events and also reviewing one fairly major recent film review from February 2014. Just like to give a note to our sponsors on this vidcast. Buttercup, other cough medicines I'm sure are available. They're not our sponsors because they're paying us, they're not. They're our sponsors because they're allowing me to speak.
Yeah.
If I sound croakier than normal, then that's what's making me be able to be heard at all. How dare you?
You sound great, but
thank you very much. This is my sexy jazz voice.
Yeah.
Hello. Sexy.
That's his sexiest, yeah.
Yeah.
Current events.
So
Start with
sad news. The death of Philip Seymour Hoffman. No one will not have heard that by this point.
Yeah.
Happened over a week ago. And it's a terrible news to A, his family, and B, the fans of the films that he is and has been in. Sadly, down to drugs.
Yeah.
Don't do drugs.
Yeah.
Simple.
Don't know how many times you need told.
Yeah.
It's
taken Philip Seymour Hoffman. It's taken Heath Ledger. It took John Belushi, although I was never a big fan. But still,
yeah.
Don't do drugs. Or if you're going to do drugs, do the right amount of drugs. I'm certainly not advocating drugs.
Do Buttercup.
Absolutely. No one has ever died of an overdose of Buttercup, although I might be.
We should maybe fact check that.
Yeah, I don't mean to cause offence, I apologise. It actually tastes really good. I would drink this just for fun. Yeah, it's gorgeous.
You put some Jack Daniels in it and just get off your face on it. I'm sponsored by Jack Daniels. Right. Philip Seymour Hoffman. So, sad.
Very sad.
Yeah. I read something interesting about the last Hunger Games, because of course he's in that. So apparently they're going to Oliver Reed it.
There's one major scene he hadn't filmed yet, so they're going to digitally insert
trickery, and I don't know, get a voiceover artist to try and mimic him or something. I don't know how they're going to do it, but yeah. But that'll be presumably his final. I don't think he had anything else in the can, did he? Or?
Nothing else that won't come out before that.
Yeah.
So that will be his final film.
That's fine.
Which, even though it's a blockbuster based on a book, it's still quite good quality. It's not a bad swan song to go out on.
If the book's anything to go by.
Given by his career, it's he's had such a good run of films, such a talent that it's not going to be one of the best ones of his career, but that's because of his career, not because of the film.
Because of the film. Yeah, I agree with that.
And yet, Shia LaBeouf stays with us.
Who?
Oh, I'm sorry. There's a man. He's not famous anymore.
I see.
So you might not realise who he is.
If you brought that up in 2009, I might have known.
You might have known, yeah. He's the deep tortured artiste, the man of great sort of pathos and great. The one from Transformers. The human from Transformers. He's currently on a bit of a meltdown. He's in a film by Lars von Trier called Nymphomaniac, in which he appears naked and having unsimulated sex, or maybe he's having it simulated and then they're intercutting it with.
I think some of the actors did it for real, and some of them they got porn doubles.
Right. Well, there's a lot of sex in it. It's kind of and Lars von Trier is a man who loves his controversy. And when asked at a recent press conference, what about the sex scenes, he made some bizarre comment that he actually stole off somebody else about flies hovering around a turd or something. Why else would you go to a press junket? Yeah. You go to a press junket about a film about sex, and you get annoyed when people ask about sex.
It's mad.
Don't be in films. If you're gonna, what was he saying? He's gonna retire from public life.
I'm retiring from public life.
Then do it. Piss off. Pardon my French. Piss off. We don't want you. You ruined Indy. You helped to ruin Transformers.
Certainly complicit. Yeah.
You can't suddenly now pretend to be some kind of special...
No. Well, the thing is, everyone's saying that one of the popular theories is it's performance art. You know, and it's a fake breakdown.
Oh, right, okay.
But so he's ripping off Joaquin Phoenix. When will it end?
Yeah.
Did you see his art installation in LA?
I heard about it.
Did you see Jerry O'Connell set up in the next booth?
No.
Hashtag I am sorry too.
Oh, brilliant.
Hats off to that man.
Jerry O'Connell from Sliders?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
He's gone up in my estimations now after that.
Good man.
So you go there and you can choose from a whip, which represents Indy, or an Optimus Prime toy, which represents
Optimus Prime wasn't in those films.
And you pick one and you go and you speak, and there's a bowl full of tweets printed out, and he sits there.
I think I'm in there.
Are you?
I'm one of the people that insulted him on Twitter.
He sits there with a paper bag on his head and cries.
Yeah.
It's riveting. I mean, it's pretentious dick.
Aye.
So
yeah,
news. That's what's happening in the world of movies. There's more movie news, but that's the two big important ones worth mentioning.
These and stories like these are the closest Malc Benjy will ever come to celeb gossip.
Yes.
Would you say that now?
Yeah. So, I'm always happy to riff on Shia LaBeouf.
Yes.
With gossip.
When a great actor does anything of note, but especially if something significant and sad is passing away, then we will talk about it.
Yeah.
But we're not going to be talking about Johnny Depp going down the shop for a pint of milk.
He did what?
Yeah, I know.
Okay. You've not got people to do that for him.
We'll always have Ed Wood. It's okay. So that's movie celeb biz. Yeah. Let's never do that again.
I like it. No, it's good.
What about that?
This thing, yeah. We're in a visual medium now. We need to be able to wow our audience.
I'm
no special effects.
Sort of shave and brush my hair and stuff for these things now. I'm not used to it.
Don't worry, I'll handle the well-groomed side of things.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
You can be the scruffy mess.
I'm used to just rolling out of the car at our top secret location, or Ben rolling out of the car at Site B, and we just podcast. But anyway.
So big release last weekend in Britain, where we are. This weekend in America, where our big American fan base is.
Yes, a massive American fan base.
It's one of the big releases of the early part of 2014. I would say it's been sort of heralded with trepidation.
Great fear and trepidation.
Well, yeah. It's the remake of the 1987 Robocop.
Yeah. It's one of the... Now, love it or hate it, and you're saying one of the big releases of...
You keep talking, I'm going to get a tissue.
Okay. So love it or hate it, it's going to be difficult to turn to you now, but... we said one of the big releases of 2014, which it is. But I'm going to get flamed on the internet for saying this. In a weird way, it's one of the big releases of my adult life. Not because of the film itself, which we'll talk about the pros, cons and that other, but because of the baggage.
Absolutely.
With it. I grew up adoring Robocop, so I'm far younger than I should have. Thanks, Mum and Dad.
Whether you love or loathe the original Robocop, it is one of the truly iconic films of the 80s.
Very much so.
It's original. At least, it's not a remake, it's not a rip-off, it's not an adaptation. No. It kind of is the Jesus story, which Paul Verhoeven has said. It kind of is a bit like Judge Dredd, it kind of is like other things, it's kind of a bit like Terminator. But it is an original story, told in a very original way, directed by a man who was not used to Hollywood rules, and so it doesn't follow your typical Hollywood sort of cliches. And the impact that it made at the time was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And so,
and justly so.
And I would agree, I watched it for the first time far too young as well, and it had a big impact on me. Robocop was one of my absolute heroes growing up. And so this reboot is not just a reboot, and for many people of our age, they'll probably feel the same way, especially sci-fi fans, especially Robocop fans. It's a big one.
As somebody who loved robots in the 80s and has been to cinemas in the 90s, I'd safe to say I've been hurt before.
Yeah.
As we may have alluded to earlier in this video.
And for people who sort of are into the reboots of sci-fi and maybe things from the 70s and 80s being kind of restarted and rebooted by Ridley Scott, I've been burned by reboots and remakes before as well. But it
was alright, wasn't it?
It wasn't that bad. Yeah.
That's the shocker. Malc Benjy in Rebootcop.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think...
Shocking.
I think I'm maybe a little bit less fair than you when it comes to prejudging things. I think I'd say that's fair.
Maybe.
Well, yeah. You know.
We're both pretty bad.
Yeah.
There was... I told my brother that when we came back from seeing it, and I was texting my brother, he said, "Is it any good?" And I said, "You know what? It's a lot better than I expected it to be." And Benji said so too. And my brother said, "I knew you pair of snobby bastards would be wrong."
Brilliant. That should be our YouTube channel.
Pair of snobby bastards. He said it with love, I'm sure.
Of course, yeah.
But and yeah, we were. Neither one of us was convinced it was a good idea.
I was going in forcing myself to have an open mind. I almost needed a crowbar to open my mind up and not think it was going to be dreadful all the way through. And maybe it's a low expectation that made it seem as... But even then, objectively, it's more successful than it could and should have been. Because it's been a week now since we've seen it. And I'm still feeling fairly positively about it.
Yeah. It's far from perfect. It's got its fair share of issues, which we'll talk about.
You will see across the whole plethora of reviews of this film, not as bad as it could have been, is kind of the theme.
The theme, yeah.
So it's by no means the True Grit remake, it's by no means the 1982 Thing, which is a remake of a 50s sci-fi film. It's not that good a remake. It's not reinventing Robocop. Robocop is still, Peter Weller.
Peter Weller.
Paul Weller, he's the singer.
Yeah.
Peter Weller, Paul Verhoeven, that is still Robocop. This is Robocop, brackets, 2014, or hashtag Rebootcop, as
we're calling it.
As we're calling it. I'm pretty sure that you have the coinage on that. I think anyone else has called it I've never seen that before you came with Reboot.
So I coined Rebootcop.
To the best of my knowledge, yes.
I'll have that.
If you want to disagree with me.
I will buy that for $1. Oh, they almost write themselves.
Yeah, they do. Stop or there will be trouble. So anyway.
Right, okay. So will we do sort of a likes, dislikes?
Let's start with a very brief synopsis.
Okay.
So Rebootcop tells the story of Alex Murphy, who's no longer a plod, he's a detective working for Detroit Police Department in the year 20...
With Omar from The Wire.
With Omar from The Wire playing Lewis, but not Woman Lewis.
No, because Omar from The Wire. Yeah.
Because The Wire... Yeah, anyway, it's Omar from The Wire.
Sorry.
Not in drag. So he's a detective, he's on the trail of this nasty piece of work who's got links in with the police department, it's all corrupt and whatnot, blah, 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 blah. He gets blown up in a car bomb, and his wife is convinced by the slimy CEO of Omnicorp, played by Michael Keaton.
Slimy? He's Batman!
To put him in a robot body.
Yeah.
Which he does, and she does, and she agrees, and then Gary Oldman, who is the doctor, puts him in a robot body. I know Gary Oldman. He's a staple favourite of Malc Benjy. So he's put in a robot body, and he then becomes Robocop. But no, he doesn't know. He's still Alex Murphy in a robot body.
Yeah, this is a difference. This is how we're not doing the 1987.
Yeah, he's having emotional problems because he's basically a head in a robot.
Yeah,
and so and a hand, of course, done in the hand.
Yeah.
So they tone down his dopamine, which, science, people, science. And that makes him an emotionless robot. You see what they did there? They turned him into a robot after they turned him into a robot. He then goes on a really cool sort of police beat down on the criminals of Detroit. There's also some subplot involving his sprog and his wife.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try and stay as spoiler free as I can because it's a recent movie. Yeah. On the podcast, we generally do older movies, so spoilers aren't quite so relevant. If you haven't seen the movie by then, it's your own fault. But this is fairly new, so we'll stay as spoiler free as we can. Although we can't guarantee spoiler free, so.
If you're that worried, maybe pause and watch us after. But yeah, if you're open to it, we'll not be graphic, but it might happen. So.
Well,
pretty much like the violence in this Paul Verhoeven remake.
Very good. Good segue. Good segue.
Thank you. actually, is that us done with this synopsis, or?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm gonna use that segue as a springboard.
Let's go into likes and dislikes.
One of the things that I ended up, like is too strong a word, one of the things that ended up not bothering me in any way whatsoever, and yet it was one of my biggest gripes going in, was the PG-13 rating.
12A
12A over here. And everywhere you go, especially, I spend a lot of time talking about movies on the internet, on message boards and that, and everywhere it's people going, original was rated R, this one is rated PG-13, this one will be rubbish. Mm-hmm. And I kind of agreed with them before that, because I don't mean to say like it's all about the violence and that, but the first one was fairly defined by its over-the-top violence and how, and it was making a point.
It was making a statement on violence.
It was making and therein lies why it's not a problem.
In fact, can I just cut with an anecdote just there about the making of the original Robocop?
Yes, okay.
There was a scene when, near the beginning of the original Robocop, when Ed 209 guns down an OCP executive, and he gets shot for about 30 seconds, and he's dead, and there's jam going everywhere, and Ed 209 is still shooting him and shooting him and shooting him and shooting him. And at the very end, someone goes, call a medic, or something like that, or check his pulse. He's dead. He's clearly dead. Now, the censors and the producers at Orion at the time said it's too violent, too graphic, we need to shorten that scene. And he ends up getting shot for like 7 seconds instead. Yeah. And it ends up being a much more gory scene after 7 seconds. Whereas after 30 seconds of him of Ed 209 shooting this dead body, that's hilarious. 7 seconds is actually quite intense.
Yeah.
And so that's the statement he's making, and that's how it was misconstrued by Hollywood. The director's cut is much more satirical and much less believable in its violence, even though it's gorier, than the original theatrical cut, because...
Well, that's it in a nutshell. By toning down the violence, they made it more believable, which actually made it more of the censor alarming property that the censors thought it was.
Yeah.
When it wasn't. I mean... Obviously, it was not for
producers.
Kids. Not for kids, but
Stupid American producers of the 80s.
Crazy people.
Yeah.
But with this one, because it's not making that point, it doesn't matter that it's not as violent.
No.
The violence in it is fine. It's fairly typical of recent Hollywood blockbusters. It's a lot better than the violence in the Transformers movies. You can tell what's going on. It's less chaotic. Apart from one scene where it's deliberately chaotic, it's a POV shot, and so that works. He shoots a few people. There's minimal blood spatter. It's there. You can tell when he's tased someone and when he's shot someone, but it doesn't dwell on it. So it's almost like the best of both worlds. The censors get a reasonably blood-free film that they can let see the light of day, and therefore the studio can release it to a wider audience and make more money. But the violence still feels kind of sort of satisfying and justified by the story.
Yeah. And I've never had a problem with PG-13. I've never had a problem with toned down ratings. I think that when the story relies on violence, that's when you don't have enough story.
Exactly.
You can get Raiders of the Lost Ark, PG. Much better than most of the films that followed it that all had bigger ratings. It's
Alien vs Predator 2, 18 over here, R in the States.
Yeah.
It's awful.
It does not make it a good film.
Jurassic Park, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
PG's over here, PG-13's over there.
So the rating cannot be that important.
And can I just add, Jurassic Park is scarier than Alien vs Predator.
Yes, absolutely.
The rating, this slave to the ratings thing is nonsense. One
of the things that didn't bother me as much was the humanisation of Robocop. Because the original Robocop, he becomes a cyborg who then relearns what it's like to be a human.
Slowly rediscovers.
And the new one, it's far more, his face is revealed far earlier, and there's a subplot with his wife and kids, and it's about what makes him a man, and that to me helped because it changed what Robocop was about. And so it wasn't trying to copy the original Robocop, it was looking at the same themes from a different angle. And that, to me, is what a reboot or a remake should do.
Exactly. It gave the remake a point.
Yes.
That's the other thing that a lot of people before the film came out were saying, what's the point of remaking Robocop? Yeah. Robocop's brilliant. Remake a rubbish film, because it was rubbish. And so, whilst this one, I think we've both said that it's not as good as the original film, or we didn't enjoy it as much as the original film. But as far as remakes go, it's one of the most worthy, I'd say, because they tried to do something different with it. and not so different that it barely resembled the original and therefore defeated the purpose of using the same name.
Aye.
But different enough that it wasn't just a retread.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a fine line to walk.
Aye.
Not as fine as you might think by the amount of people that get it wrong. But yeah, no. I would agree with that, yeah.
Yeah.
The cast, for the most part,
Cast are amazing. I mean, for this many good people to sign on to do it, it can't be that bad, can it?
When the Oldman signed up, that was when I started thinking, I might actually go and see this.
Yeah.
When I read about it, I was like, no!
Michael Keaton's done some drafts, Samuel L. Jackson's done some drafts, Jackie Earle Haley's done some drafts, but when they all get to sign up together at the same time...
Yeah, the odds of it being drafts.
Yeah, and Gary Oldman's famously this week said he did it, for the money, but even so...
He didn't phone it in.
No, he didn't. None of them did.
No.
None of them did.
That's great. And, I mean, Sam Jackson...
Are you sure it's not Denzel Washington?
It's Morgan Freeman.
Right, okay, yeah. So
sorry.
That guy.
Yeah, Morgan Freeman. They gave Keanu Reeves the phone in The Matrix. It's Sam Jackson. It's that role, particularly as the film goes on, I'll try and avoid spoilers, but it becomes a bit more shouty and a bit more... And it does kind of feel like one of those just... Yeah, the script might as well have said Sam Jackson. It's not really stretching him as an actor, but it's all kinds of not a problem.
Absolutely.
He just comes in, he gives it textbook Samuel L. Jackson, and it's exactly what we needed. We needed the shouter. We needed. I'm trying to think of examples now. Well, we needed Pulp Fiction rather than Star Wars.
Yes,
and that's what we got.
Yeah.
He suits it well.
Yeah.
Michael Keaton's
no one's best role.
No
one's best role. But certainly
maybe Joel Kinnaman's.
Okay, no one who we've already mentioned
was unfair,
best role. Joel Kinnaman's not bad. He's the good-looking lead. He's the banal. He's the Keanu Reeves of the film. He's the boring, good-looking guy who becomes the hero, and he's not that bad. He's not great. I don't think. Well, maybe he'll win an Oscar one day. Not off the back of this.
No.
But he's all right. He's fine. He's a lot less wooden than most people. In those sorts of roles. Don't mean to speak ill of the dead, but Paul Walker is one who was not very good. Keanu Reeves is one who is... He has done good stuff, but very rarely.
Yeah.
Hayden Christensen is a big chunk of concrete. And Joel Kinnaman manages to actually be believable in this big robot suit with his... Yeah.
I enjoyed him, in particular, a lot more than I expected, because from the trailers... You didn't get a lot of him in the trailers, a lot of him with the visor up. Mm-hmm. But, even things like when he wakes up and what did you do to me? And in the trailer I thought, meh. And then in the film I thought, meh. Yeah. Which, I'm still making basically the same noise, but the inflection is different.
Yeah.
And, I think, he was a pleasant surprise. He didn't blow me away, but he did better than I expected him to.
Yeah. I really liked the bit set in Tehran.
Yeah.
It was one of those moments when they've clearly decided to make a social political point about today, showing Tehran. It had sort of twinges of Homeland in my head. It had me thinking of Zero Dark 30 and taking the robots, taking the sci-fi element and putting it into a real world context where
it's like what Dick Jones talks about in the original Robocop about military supply for years to come, and you're kind of thinking, oh my god, what if this technology did get used in warfare? And then this film's like, here it is.
Yeah. And when you see Ed 209 take out a kid with a knife, it's like this isn't too far from what we see on the news, and I like that. I like the fact that they were just being so superficial about the film. They were just doing a robot in a suit. A guy in a robot suit. They actually had a point to make.
It's certainly not going to fall into that sort of recent sci-fi blockbuster. Again, I'm going to pick on it again. Not going to fall into that Transformers thing of it's just a big dumb action movie. It's clearly not.
Yeah.
5 minutes in.
Aye.
Okay, this is a lot less dumb than people might have you believe.
By the way, that's never an excuse for a poor movie.
No.
Hey, you've got to turn your brain off. No, you don't.
No.
The filmmakers shouldn't have turned their brains off.
Two recent examples at maybe opposite ends of the not opposite ends of the smartness scale, but one's smarter than the other. Avengers and Pacific Rim are both movies that are big and loud and really fun. Pacific Rim's reasonably dumb. I don't mean that in a harsh way, in a criticism way, but that's kind of, I think, what people like to think they mean when they say turn your brain off cinema. And if that's what they meant, then fine. Michael Bay films and others of that ilk. No. Like you say, it's no excuse.
Yeah.
You can be, and again, Avengers is actually, that's a really clever script. It's, the plot makes sense. It's not as deep as a lot of other films.
No, it's not.
There's character development, there's coherence, but it's still big and loud and brash and stuff. So you can make a film that's aesthetically similar to these big brainless action behemoths and still have a heart and soul behind it.
Absolutely.
So there's no excuse not to.
No excuse.
But back on topic, this is not one of those films. This is actually a fairly intelligent sci-fi.
Yeah.
And I agree. The sort of the commentary about today. And again, it's a good example of wisely picking different targets to what Verhoeven picked on.
Yeah.
Verhoeven picked on sort of the. Well, basically, he picked on the type of movie he was making. It's kind of a satire of. And sort of consumerism.
They're both kind of the mick out of Republicans, don't they?
Yeah.
I don't get American politics as well as a lot of American people, but I do get the idea that Republicans like guns and violence and asking questions later.
I certainly get that impression.
And Robocop does satirise that.
Yeah, very much so.
The original Robocop is a tale, again in the words of Paul Verhoeven, of Jesus, of a man who sacrificed himself, is gunned down and is resurrected to become a saviour. And the saving is done with a Beretta machine gun rather than a piece of bread and wine, but it's still it's an American Jesus. It's a Jesus for the Reagan era, where violence replaces peace and where the bullet replaces the saving word. This is more of a Frankenstein's tale. It's more about the relationship between the man and the monster, and between what we can do and what we should do. It reminds me of Jeff Goldblum's immortal line in Jurassic Park. And we were so busy to find out whether we could do it, we never stopped thinking we should. Yeah. And that's kind of Gary Oldman's character arc in this film. Yeah, he's convinced fairly early on that what he can do is more important than what he should do, and he does it. And then he spends a lot of the film wrestling with what he did and what he should have done. So and that's a really interesting take as well.
I'd have been a lot angrier at that character if it wasn't Gary Oldman.
Yeah.
If that was Liam Neeson, I'd be like, oh. Nothing against Liam Neeson.
Release the Robocop.
If that was recent Liam Neeson, if that was Taken Neeson, as opposed to Oscar Schindler. But yeah, so what didn't we like about it?
It was a little bit generic. It was a little bit. There's a really good word that I can't remember for the life of me. Generic will do for now.
Yeah.
The action was just a bit normal. It was a bit sort of seen it all before. A lot of the sort of the like Mark said, there was one impressive action sequence where it's a POV shot where the bad guys have all got night vision goggles and he goes into night vision mode and they're all seeing red and he's seeing white or vice versa.
Yeah.
And that's really inventive. Yeah. That works really well. Most of the rest of the action is just kind of like every other sci-fi remake. It's
the special effects are good. Fine. It's reasonably well choreographed, but it doesn't stick in your mind.
No.
And you're not thinking of. You won't be talking about it in 20 years like we still talk about the slipway chase in Terminator 2.
Absolutely,
It's like that.
Yeah. And there should have been something, should there have been, it would have been nice if there had been something more that grabbed you more original, more, that showed more the craft of editing and the craft of filmmaking.
I think a lot of the sort of the really good ideas that we talked about earlier, the things that they did that we didn't expect them to do that were nice, the Tehran stuff and so on, that a lot of it doesn't go anywhere. I think it raises a lot of good questions and it answers about half of them.
Yes. And if you're going to raise awareness of these things, then the purpose of your film is to answer them.
Yeah, you need to put context in it.
Yeah, or at least provide a hook for the audience to answer it for themselves. It shouldn't just dribble it in.
Again, so I suppose you could argue the Sam Jackson sort of to post it propaganda. Yeah. The Sam Jackson propaganda stuff maybe is the answer to that, but there's nobody counterbalancing him. There's nobody arguing with him.
No.
There's that. I also this business with the hand. And feel free to argue with me on this, both Benjy and the internet. Use your comments.
You're wrong.
Okay, thank you.
Go on, sorry.
The hand. So he has a hand. That's not a spoiler, it's in all the trailers and that. It's been talked to death on the internet. So he has a hand. Nobody can decide, have they left the hand on because of the line in the first one about lose the arm? So this is him saying, oh look, we didn't lose the arm. Is it because it's his right hand, which is also the first hand Clarence Boddicker blows away in the original film? And this, again, is a difference, you know. I think, having seen the film, I think it's part of the Omnicore. There's a man in the machine, you know, he's used as a tool by Michael Keaton to kind of put a human face on his product. And so the idea is, when you go to shake his hand, you'll shake his right hand's human, it's flesh, you know, it's not cold metal. I think that's the idea, but my beef is nobody says that in the film. And I don't mean to sound like I need to be spoon-fed everything, but again, maybe if...
It's nice to know they thought about it.
Yeah. Am I giving them too much credit or not enough credit? At the moment, I don't know.
Yeah.
So, not a major gripe.
I don't know, is the hand connected to the brain? Because if it's not, then it's a symbol. If it is, it might be to do with him keeping his human touch.
Yeah.
And keeping that sense of humanity between what he can see and what he can feel.
Can I spoiler?
Yeah, go ahead.
Spoiler. In the scene where they strip all the stuff away and it's just the head and lungs and that, there's nothing.
There's a bar.
There's a bar, but yeah,
are there nerves through the bar?
Are there nerves through the bar or not?
We don't know,
but it doesn't look like it. Because
I need to watch it again. I think
it comes up at an awkward angle. I think that bar is just there to hold it when it's not where.
Well, there's no elbow on the bar, is there? Yeah, that makes sense.
So, yeah.
Okay, all right.
But again, we don't know.
Yeah.
So I think that's a valid criticism. A bit more clarity on that. Maybe there's a director's cut that Jose Padilla, Jose apparently had a hell of a time with the studio making this one. Apparently, he said the quote I read from him, which was apparently a conversation with one of his friends that was not supposed to have made the light of day before the film came out. Was it's the worst experience of my life. The film will be good, but I hate this.
Oh right, okay.
Clearly he was had an uphill struggle with studio interference. Now, the good elements of the film, I like to think have come from him. Certainly the actors all speak highly of him, and I've not seen his previous films, but Sam Jackson said he only did this because he wanted to work.
I think they're Brazilian action films.
Yeah.
I forget the names of them, but yeah, they're meant to be really good.
So I like to think he was the good stuff, and the studio interferences.
Elite Squad.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay.
And you know, possibly the studio interference is stuff I don't like. So hopefully there's a Jose cut out there.
Yeah.
That really is the bee's knees. It'll still have the generic action. I think
Yeah.
You know, unless they're going to refilm entire sequences, a director's cut isn't going to make it a perfect film, but it might improve on some.
It might.
Things, yeah.
Who played the wife?
Abby Cornish. Sucker Punch.
She's fine.
Yeah.
She's okay. The kid's okay. He's one of the less annoying screen moppets.
He's no Jake Lloyd.
I didn't like it. I didn't need it. I know what they were doing, and it was fairly successful in terms of what they were doing thematically. That storyline about retaining his humanity, but it just made me uncomfortable. Like, is he going to be sat in an armchair drinking his cocoa as Robocop?
Yeah.
What's that? What are you doing with that? You know.
I found the wife to be more the arc with the wife to be more fulfilling than with the son. Possibly just because she had more scenes.
Possibly.
She's an adult, she's been acting longer.
But I found the wife arc far more fulfilling in the original Robocop.
Yes.
When it was a case of emotional distress and distraughtness rather than, you're a robot now, what are we going to do?
Yeah, that was Robocop 2.
Well, the original Robocop
saga,
continuity,
I'd forgotten. It's a long time since I watched it. I watched the original one recently ahead of seeing the new one. I've forgotten just how little his wife's actually in the first one.
Oh, it's virtually nothing. It's just a flashback.
Just in when he goes through the house. Yeah.
So I can see what they were doing with the new with the wife in the new one, but I didn't need it. I don't think it was necessary. There was enough. Is he human? Is he robot? Without.
If some other elements were missing, then. You know, you could again. It's like one of these half-finished ideas. You know, if it wanted to hair down, it could have dropped the cop aspect. If it wasn't a remake of Robocop, and if it was a new film about a man becoming a machine, they could have dropped the sort of the police action element from the storyline, and just done a drama about a family accepting their patriarch. Yeah,
Robo-Dad, starring Bill Cosby. That's an idea. Copyrighted. Us. Don't nick that idea, Robo-Dad, that's happening.
Is it a prequel to Ghost Dad? A sequel? No connection?
Well, no connection. thematically linked, not narratively.
Oh, can we do like a Three Colours Cosby trilogy?
What would the third one be? Pirate Dad, Ninja Dad, Alien Dad. No,
I don't know. Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, the first one's supernatural. The second one's sci-fi. Oh no! So we need to do one in the middle. Where is it?
Wizard Dad.
A police procedural.
Oh right, okay.
Well, I was doing the Cornettos.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Cop Dad.
Yeah, Cop Dad.
Dad Cop. I don't know.
And we've gone full circle from the Dad Robocop stuff.
Dad Lieutenant.
Oh!
There we are.
Oh!
Thank you.
And I need to touch you.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Why?
All right.
Okay, so yeah, I think...
should we sum up?
Yeah.
It's all right.
Yeah, enjoyable. 2 hours.
Go and see it.
Mm-hmm.
If you've seen the original Robocop. If you haven't seen the original Robocop, go and watch that instead, and then watch this, and you'll be pleasantly surprised.
I'd say better than Robocop 3. Definitely.
Yeah.
I personally didn't think it was as good as Robocop 2. I've seen people say it is, but I think they're wrong.
I think, yeah. when we agree, that's basically it. And Robocop 2 is better than this.
Yeah.
So.
But it's a worthy addition to the franchise.
Yeah, worth watching.
Yeah.
C+.
Yeah. A lot more of an X-Men First Class than an X-Men Origins Wolverine.
What? Sorry, I don't remember thinking. That never happened, did it? What's going on?
It's not happened yet, but it'll have not
but it
happened
will
in the summer.
So, thank you very much for watching
Yeah.
the first proper vidcast from Malc Benjy. We'll be back again in the
Stay tuned for more. Yeah.
We're off to see the Lego movie at some point this weekend.
Yes.
So that'll be covered in the
we'll
next
probably cover
vidcast.
that.
And maybe something else, either classic or recent.
Well, we've got a classic movie marathon coming up at our local flea pit, so we might do.
Yes, there will be a vidcast on that.
Vidcast about that.
Yeah, that'll be very good. So thanks for watching.
Thanks for stopping by, San Diego.
Stay classy.